to Taguig City Education Office and DepEd Taguig City's Education Hour. I'm Teacher Angelina from Taguig Integrated School. Today, we will have a literary review and what literature can teach us about pandemics. But first, let's have a quick quiz. I know that you are familiar with this game. 4 picks, 1 word. So we have here 3 sets of pictures. First set of pictures. I hope you will be able to answer this within 5 seconds, okay? And the answer is coronavirus. Next set of pictures. Time is up. The answer is pandemic. And the last set of pictures the answer is literature. Since we mentioned about those terms, let us have a refresher about their definitions. When we say literature, it refers to works of the creative imagination, including poetry, drama, fiction, non-fiction, and in some instances, journalism, and a song. Literature is also considered as the mirror of the society. Now let's have the definition of pandemic. When we say pandemic, it is an epidemic disease that has spread across a large region, for instance, multiple continents or even worldwide, that affects number of people. Our objectives for today at the end of this discussion are the following. Recognize the role of literature in our society. Second, discover literary devices used in a story. And the third one, promote reading as one of the best routines during lockdown. Well, the book by Dean Koontz, The Eyes of Darkness, which was released in 1981, made me decide to have this topic. This is very interesting because, as you can see, we have here contents that are very relatable to our ongoing pandemic. It says, in around 2020, a severe pneumonia-like illness will spread throughout the globe, attacking the lungs and the bronchial tubes and resisting all known treatments. So it means to say that this kind of disease has no cure. So another highlighted content of the book of Dean Koontz, please read the highlighted part of the book. The content is very interesting, right? So what do you think? Could this be a prediction or just a coincidence? Let me give you some of the literary works with pandemic scenarios. First, we have Iliad by Homer. In this story, there was a scenario there that Apollo sent a plague to punish the Greeks. Next, the Decameron in 1353 by Giovanni Boccaccio. The story was written during the time when the Black Death was wiping out the Italian population. So backdrop of the story was how the 7 women and 3 men escaped from the plague to create a prosperous community. And the third one, The Fever by Dion Mayer. It was released in 2016. This is a science fiction story that was set in the near future, where the narrator, Nico Storm, and his father survived from the airborne AIDS-related virus that had wiped out much of the world's population. We will be having 2 questions here, so we need to answer the questions right after I tell you the story for today. The first question is, why do authors or writers use pandemic in their literary pieces? Second question is, how fictional pandemics can help fight real-world diseases? This time, I am going to tell you a story about The Mask of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe. But before that, let's have a quick review of his life or his background. Edgar Allan Poe was an American writer, poet, editor, and literary critic. Poe is the best known for his poetry and short stories. He is widely regarded as a central figure of Romanticism. Now let's start the story. In the kingdom of Prince Prospero, a disease, the Red Death, viciously killed all who contracted it. As it runs its course throughout his kingdom, Prospero decided to escape its grasp. He decided to avoid the plague by inviting all the nobles to his castle and kept the doors shut in order for them to be safe. Prospero believed that he and the nobles of his kingdom can escape death. Therefore, all wealthy and unaffected people stayed inside his castle. He organized a grand masquerade ball. Guests were amused by the grandiose rooms that Prospero had created. He decorated 7 rooms, each with different color: blue, purple, green, orange, white, violet, and black. All the rooms were designed with stained glass windows, except for the final black room, which had red stained glass windows. The said room was scary enough that no one enters. There was also a mysterious ebony clock within the room that chimes every hour and disturbed the party. As the party went on and the clock was about to strike midnight, an enigmatic guest appeared dressed as a play victim. Deeply disturbed by the guest's poor judgment, Prospero engaged with the visitor. However, as he was reaching the figure, he fell down and died. As the guests tried to subdue the intruder, they were able to find out that there was no one under the costume, and they all died. In the end, the Red Death was able to infiltrate the castle despite Prince Prospero's efforts to escape. And that is the story of The Mask of the Red Death. Now it's time for our literary analysis plus reality check. So what is The Mask of the Red Death about? So I have here my comparison. So we have here the protagonist, the Prince Prospero, and the guests. In our present time, we have the government, and the guests there are the people. The antagonist in the story, which is the mysterious guest, here in our present time is the COVID-19. For the setting, in the story, the kingdom was the world, and the castle is considered as the country. Well, let me tell you the author's inspiration in writing the story. So Poe was able to invent this kind of story because during that time, he was inspired during the Black Death and tuberculosis. Well, the Black Death in the 1300s, a plague called the Black Death swept across Europe killing as many as 25 million people. Most of those who caught the disease died within 3 to 5 days after their symptoms appeared. Related to tuberculosis, many of the women in Poe's life died from tuberculosis, including his mother and his wife. He later developed the story Mask of the Red Death based on his fear of life-ending disease. Here are the themes of the story. It's about death, life, fate, and social classes. The literary devices used by Edgar Allan Poe are personification when he used the Red Death, allegory because it's about humans' desire to avoid death, and of course a lot of symbols. He used masks to represent the aristocrats who attempted to hide from the Red Death. Next, the ebony clock. It is about passing time. Another symbol is the 7 rooms that he decorated. It's all about the stages of life. And lastly, Red Death, which represents death. There you go. That ends my literary analysis of the story The Mask of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe. Now let's answer the 2 important questions for today. The first question is, why do authors or writers use pandemic in their literary works? Some of them use pandemic in their works not only to provide realistic accounts, but also to create a clear view regarding the matter in an artistic way wherein they can express their ideas freely. Second question, how fictional pandemics can help fight real-world diseases? Well, the answer to that question is, since most of the fictional stories were based on real accounts, stories can definitely inspire readers and somehow guide people in finding solution to fight the crisis. Well, I hope you have learned something from me today. And again, I'm Teacher Angel from Taguig Integrated School. Thank you and keep safe.